Oda has just started Luffy versus the Elbaf Sun God, whose powers are similar to that of Gear 5. You know how Luffy can create sunglasses or baseball bats from thin air? Well, with the resin powers of the Sun God, Bro can do the same thing, but with Legos. Yet, because of these Legos, even though it's confirmed that we are in Elbaf, it doesn't really feel like it to the members present. As how do they even have these new normal-sized clothes with Viking aesthetics? While Luffy and Zoro are just happy to have a new adventure, Nami, Usopp, and even Sanji question their new circumstance, as they were on the giant ship one second, and the next, they have lost their clothes and are on this weird city with enormous animals. But Diddy is in prison, so who started this party? Before dwelling on how they got there, the Straw Hats start running amok in this new location. Zoro says that when he woke up, he found Luffy because of all the noise he was making while taking down a giant rabbit. To which Luffy has an interesting response to Usopp. You could have taken down that cat lion on your own. This is a massive hint by Oda telling us that we will get a character arc for Usopp, where he will finally have the chance to flesh out his observation haki, becoming a strong, brave warrior of the sea. In fact, according to my new theory about Loki, Usopp might be the one to face the trickster god, who will be the eventual antagonist of Elbaf. Even Usopp hints that the only reason he didn't beat up the rabbit was because he was already in its mouth and he was kind of freaked out. Alright. If he wasn't on the mouth, that rabbit was done for. Big man Usopp was about to fuck that shit up. Usopp, being the focus of Elbaf, gets elevated even more as he stands up, giving the crew his assessment that they are all wearing Elbaf warrior attire. Wait, no way. What the fuck? They are at... Yo, he's right. They look like Vikings. The bro is cooking. How did no one notice that? Oh my god. Dude, this is what true observation looks like, man. His character is already progressing. It doesn't stop there, though, because big 2024 is Usopp's year, as he drops a bombshell. If they are in the land of giants, how are they wearing tiny clothes? Oh my god. Yo, I never even thought of that. Jokes aside though, the rest of the crew make their own observations as well, like the fact that the trees are made of Lego bricks too, meaning nothing there seems to be real. Yet the land they are in is never ending. There is no sign of the ocean, just vast landscapes in front of them. But in such an empty field, there should be some wind blowing, right? Yet Nami can't sense any. It's almost like they are inside an enclosed space. Sanji then activates one of his strongest abilities, the baddie radar.
I beg your pardon?
This dude starts sniffing like a goddamn dog. Anyway, Sanji's baddie radar, as much as we clown on it, it is pretty accurate, and if he can't find Robin, that means the rest of the crew aren't here. However, Luffy isn't bothered by any of it. He is just as excited to explore and have a grand adventure in a new location. As the gang start moving towards the city, they meet a man riding a giant grasshopper, who is not the least bit shocked at the sight of the Straw Hats. Bro just says, oh, newcomers. He acts like this is a normal thing, basically telling us that new people showing up in this town is a very normal occurrence, especially ones with a lot of questions, because the guy just says that he's in a hurry and can't chat much right now, but then he stops and gives us a whole info about the place, but it is what it is. Turns out that the big castle in the distance belongs to deities like the cat that was chasing Usopp and Nami. The man explains that this is actually the land of the gods and runs away as the needle god must be starving by now, which is probably the hedgehog Luffy and Zoro beat up last chapter. He gives a final warning to not follow this road as it leads to the guardians which protect the sun god's temple, and no one has ever gone past there and returned alive. So of course Luffy zips towards it in an instant. They can't even stop him. He's already halfway there. But this interaction gives me a lot of vibes reminiscent of the start of Skypiea, where the Straw Hats met Conus and were told a bunch of rules that they can't break, and Luffy instantly ends up going against that. With that arc also being about gods and deities like the priests of Enel, there seems to be a strong connection between Elbaf and Skypiea Skypiea, especially considering both places worship the sun god. In a similar fashion, Elbaf might be about fighting against rules and oppression from a class deemed holy, not through religion or godhood this time, but rather tradition. Before I touch on that though, Luffy slams his head onto thin air. Turns out that the endless landscape we see is simply an illusion caused by a mirror box which the Straw Hats are trapped inside. Luffy's slam shatters this mirror, which reveals to us that we are actually inside a prison or a diorama of some sorts, which is inside a giant room. In there, not only do we see a sewing machine which was used to create the clothes for everyone, but also Chopper screaming for help. The reason everyone else was trapped inside this made-up world and Chopper wasn't has to do with the significance of deers in Norse mythology, where they represent fertility, intuition, good fortune, and a sort of guide. So whoever kept him on their table might have thought he would make a nice good luck charm, while the humans were just dolls for this fake sun god's amusement, who seems to get a kick out of claiming themselves as this mythical figure, by the way. Then we get a hint as to why this could be the case, as Sanji says that when they were cooking the rabbit earlier inside the Lego world, it smelled a lot like resin or plastic burning, suggesting that this fake sun god has the resin fruit, which is basically plastic. This is actually a theory much of the community had about Luffy's own fruit when chapter 1043 dropped like 2 years ago, where at the last page we saw Luffy looking like his face was melting like plastic, especially his hair. At that time, I made the reasoning that the resin being one of the properties of the sun god made a lot of sense, as it has that stretchy and malleable factor to it where due to his viscosity, certain thick oils can stay intact and upon being heated, they can be molded again. Even the thematic aspect of this theory made sense, where you need oil to burn the lantern of liberation and freedom. You can't create liberation with just one Nika, I guess. You need multiple sun gods from different locations with different roles, I guess. With Elbaf being isolated from the rest of the world similar to Wano, they might see devil fruit powers in a different light also. For example, in Wano, they were magical jutsu, but in the land of giants, they will view it as a god possessing you. So with this person having the resin fruit, which gives you the ability to stretch and mold objects around you, similar to how Luffy can create glasses and bats out of thin air in Gear 5, fake sun god assumes themselves to be the second coming of Nika. However, there is a twist to it. If others around them saw it the same way, then there's no way bro would be stuck inside a small room by giant standards playing pretend kingdom with a fake nation. Zoro literally calls it a sick hobby, as the giant likes to watch the animals and people trapped inside that block world, which is obviously hella creepy. Well, not to Anji though, cause bro is busy gooning. He asks Nami if he can volunteer to clean the ladies' room on the ship.
Is this serious?
Somebody check this man's Costco receipts. How many baby oil does Sanji own? The chapter literally started with Nami being disgusted by her being in this dude's arm. Get away from her. And last chapter, I didn't cover it, but he ain't escaping this. Bro had to bring out his Ifrit Jambe attack against some fodder animals. You are trash.
Stop it. Get some help.
But before the Straw Hats can go inside and ask for more info from the townspeople, Luffy starts beef with a giant snake similar to Skypiea, while Nami is being chased by Shanks' cousins and Zoro has to deal with a raven. All of these entities are reminiscent of creatures from Norse mythology. The snake is called Jormungandr, which is the world serpent of Midgard. He is one of Loki's 3 monstrous children, while the raven is called Munin, which is one of Odin's 2 ravens. With this battle happening, the sun god seems to have noticed the noises coming from the room and has arrived to check in. They adorn a deer mask with a stature that looks more like a woman than a man, as we haven't really seen any slender looking giant men in all of One Piece. She's also wearing heels, so that's another hint. And the deer mask makes my mind go straight to Hel, who is one of Loki's children in Norse mythology. Mythology. Hel is the ruler of Helheim, which is basically the underworld. But Helheim is not a place of punishment like the Christian hell, rather a cold, dreary land where those who died of old age, illness, or rather non-glorious deaths go. Hel's domain lies far from the world of the living and is one of the 9 realms in Norse mythology. Those who do not die heroically in battle are sent there, while warriors who die in battle are taken to Valhalla, which is under Odin, or Folkvangr, which is under Freya. The realm is often described as cold and misty, reinforcing the idea of it being a somber place of rest rather than a place of torment. This would be enough reason for this fake sun god to create this diorama playset to keep herself entertained, as her realm or land is it's lacking. While Loki and the other royal giants reside in glorious realms and lands like Asgard, Hel is stuck in this dreary place. That's why she is masquerading as the sun god and ruling her own tiny nation where people look up to her and worship her as the sun god. This diorama is like a mini Midgard. We even have the tree of Yggdrasil inside. It's basically a fake Yggdrasil, but it is inside. But Hel being put in this realm of Helheim, which she obviously doesn't like, might be the setup for the conflict in this arc, as there might not be a good reason given by Loki for Hel to reside here. It is simply due to tradition, even if Hel might be a better ruler for Elbaf than the current Prince Loki, who's busy gooning over Lola. With her being masked, it also follows the theme of Oda making his damsels at the start of arcs masked adversaries who end up becoming allied with the Straw Hats. We saw this with Rebecca at the Colosseum, or even Vivi as Miss Wednesday. And now we have Hel role-playing as fake sun god. However, with Luffy clapping both of her pets and destroying her beloved country, Luffy versus Hel will definitely occur, where he will prove to Hel that Gear 5 checks all of the boxes from the folklores of the sun god or Nika. Then we will learn the real situation in Elbaf, where Shanks is the chieftain or protector of the realm of Midgard, while Loki and the other higher ranking giants reside in the realm of Asgard, staying disconnected from everything around them. Ever since the introduction of the giants with Dory and Broggy, Oda has been setting up a sort of civil war or clash of ideals between different giant factions. So in Elbaf, the catalyst could be the Loki faction versus the Hel faction, whom Luffy will ally with. The reason for Loki even being influential at all could be due to a pact with Shanks, whose strength he borrows. So now if Hel gets Luffy on her side, we will finally witness the long-awaited fight between the two crews, which is pretty much inevitable. Another interesting detail we learned from this chapter is that we might have already seen this fake sun god in God Valley, as we see a similar person with this deer mask right behind a young Garling figure land in chapter 1096, but of course they are normal human size. Yet with the mask being in possession of the Holy Knights, it could suggest that perhaps the people living in the upper realm of Asgard have a deal with the celestial dragons, or they themselves are connected to the world government, with Loki and the royal family of Elbaf facilitating this in secret. Whatever it may be, Luffy and the gang try and go inside the diorama again to escape fake sun god, but a battle seems to start now between the real sun god Luffy versus the fake sun god Hel. If you enjoyed this video, watch this other banger video on screen right now.